Hello, everyone. Hello, dear students. Let me first introduce myself. I am Dr. Ahmed Chaouki HOADJLI, a senior lecturer in applied linguistics. I am a teacher at the Department of English Language and Literature in BISKRA University, Algeria. This is the first presentation of a series of presentations concerning the third year Licence Linguistics course. This first series concerns the first semester of the syllabus that is supposed to be covered by the third year students at the undergraduation, or what we call in the Algerian university system the licence level. Let's start. This is theme 1. The title of theme 1 is Linguistics in the 20th Century. In this theme, we try to give a background of linguistics before the birth of modern linguistics. We know that according to the available literature on this issue, that is the history of linguistics, we know that there are two big, let's say, historical concerns: the period before the birth of modern linguistics and the period after the birth of modern linguistics. Generally, regarding this historical paradigm, we can say that usually we refer to Ferdinand de Saussure and his famous book that was published by his students in 1916 as the date of the birth of modern linguistics. In this first theme, we are going to talk and summarize and discuss, of course, briefly this theme, that is the birth of modern linguistics. Of course, let me first now tell and give you the contents of this first theme. That is, number 1, the birth of modern linguistics. Number 2, traditional grammar versus modern linguistics. And 3, a chronological development of linguistic theories. Now, as for the birth of modern linguistics, it is widely known that modern linguistics started with de Saussure, as we mentioned it just a few minutes ago. However, its emergence dates back to the late 19th century. At that time, the focus shifted from historical concerns to studying language as a system of systems at a particular period of time. Modern linguistics sought to abandon, of course, the old traditions of philological investigation that prevailed before the birth of modern linguistics. Of course, as we know, Ferdinand de Saussure laid the core foundations of modern linguistics in 1916, and that's why usually we say that Ferdinand de Saussure is the father of modern linguistics. And in order to understand the difference between the two periods before and after the birth of modern linguistics, let's give a short account on the differences between traditional grammar and modern linguistics. Just to raise your attention, usually when we talk about traditional grammar, we refer to linguistics before the birth of modern linguistics as we know it today. And linguistics, it is what we know as linguistics in the present time. Just to add a point on this difference between traditional grammar and linguistics, let me tell you that when we talk before the birth of modern linguistics, the term linguistics and the term linguist did not bear the same sense as the term that is now. Before the birth of modern linguistics, the term linguist mainly concerned those people who were able to speak more than one language. That is, as we know into this jargon, polyglots. But after the birth of modern linguistics, linguistics and linguists has shifted to mean something else. That is, the one who is specialized in the study of language and the study of language in a scientific way. So there is a shift of the term linguistics from the period before the birth of modern linguistics and after the birth of modern linguistics. Now, what's about people who studied language before the birth of modern linguistics? They were named grammarians, and generally we refer to them now traditional grammarians. Now, see some main differences between traditional grammar and modern linguistics. The first difference concerns the focus. Traditional grammar focused on the written language. However, modern linguistics now focuses on spoken language, considering that language is spoken and the natural form is the spoken form and the natural form is speech. And writing, as for linguistics today, it's an artificial form of modern linguistics, of linguistics. The second difference is that traditional grammar was prescriptive. However, modern linguistics is now descriptive. Prescriptive, that means traditional grammar sought to prescribe the main, let's say, the main rules that govern the language. In this case, traditional grammarians usually wanted to show what is supposed to be followed as grammatical rule and what should be avoided. That's why they focused more on the do's and the don'ts. However, with modern linguistics, this is not the case. Why? Because modern linguistics tries to describe language, to describe the system of language. Within the system of language, there is another system. That's why we talk usually about the system of system. The third difference between traditional grammar and modern linguistics concerns that traditional grammar, I'm sorry, on the slide there is a mistake. Traditional grammar was diachronic, not synchronic, was diachronic, okay? And modern linguistics is synchronic, which means, in other words, with traditional grammar, focus was on the historical development of language. However, with modern linguistics, focus is usually on the study of language in a given period of time. Let's move now to the fourth difference between traditional grammar and modern linguistics. Within traditional grammar, language was regarded as a mere collection of written words that express an idea. However, within modern linguistics, language is not that very simple definition of language. However, in the present time, modern linguistics regards language as a system of systems. What are the systems that are included in the system of language? Generally, we start from the bottom to the top. The first system is the system of sounds, the phonological system. Then from the system of sounds, we move to the system of words, or the morphological system. And within the system of words, we move to the system of syntactic system, the system of the rules that govern language. And from the system of syntactic system, we arrive at the system of meaning. The system of meaning is at the level of the sentence. That means here we have the fundamental unit in language, that is the phoneme, that is the speech sound. And the highest level in language is the sentence. In between, we have other levels. And every level makes a system. That's why here usually we talk about system of system. And this new idea and assumption is different from what was prevailing in traditional grammar. The last difference between traditional grammar and modern linguistics concerns the focus, also the focus. In traditional grammar, the focus was on the individual productions. However, within modern linguistics, focus is not on individuals, but language is a social phenomenon. That is, all the members of the same community, they possess the set of rules that govern a language, and these set of rules, they are shared, and within this community we can have language. This is about the difference between traditional grammar and modern linguistics in a very brief way. Now let's talk about the chronological development of linguistic theories. Here we try to see how linguistics has evolved across time. Generally, to understand how the issues of the study and description of language have evolved over time, light ought to be shed on the major linguistic theories that prevailed since the birth of modern linguistics. Of course, here there is a principle based on the limitations of the set theories can help us and facilitate for us the understanding of the emergence of sociolinguistics. Let's start by talking about two major schools, structural linguistics and the Chomskyan school, and talk about the limitations, because usually within every school there were certain limitations. Based on these limitations, the other school came to emerge. Now we talk about structural linguistics. Structural linguistics came as a reaction against the comparative study of language. The socio-structural tendencies were present in his early works. It is only after his death that two of his students published his theory in his name. Of course, structuralism as a label was not coined by the Saussure. It has two senses, one that relates to philosophy and the other to inquiry. Of course, the basic principles on which structuralism relied, we talk about synchronic description of language versus diachronic diachronic description of language. We talk about langue versus parole, signifier versus signified, the syntagmatic description of language versus the paradigmatic description of language. Overall, structural linguistics was based regarding corpus analysis, surface analysis, language diversity. For corpus analysis, this is a method used by structuralists to study language based on the forms and constructions in a limited corpus. However, a corpus can never, those who criticize it, corpus analysis said that a corpus can never illustrate the whole language. The second criticism concerned the surface analysis that was used by structuralists. Structuralists described only the surface structure and ignored the deep structure. And the final criticism is about language diversity. Structural linguistics emphasized the structural diversity of language only. And now let's move to the second school or theory or approach in linguistics in the 20th century. It is generally referred to as the transformational generative grammar, or the TGG, that was initiated by Ferdinand de Saussure, by Noam Chomsky. The criticisms of structuralism led to the emergence of a new linguistic theory in the second half of the 20th century, transformational generative grammar, TGG. It starts with the publication of syntactic structures by Noam Chomsky. This new linguistic theory revolutionized linguistics. Of course, TGG adopted the mentalist approach and is based on the principle of innateness. The basic principles of Chomsky's theory, or TGG. Chomsky's objection to corpus analysis is based on his elicitation of two concepts, competence on one hand and performance on the other one. For him, there may not always be exact correspondence between the speaker's competence and their performance. Rejecting the formal analysis of sentences, Chomsky distinguished between two levels of syntactic structures in a sentence, the surface structure and the deep structure. According to Chomsky, language is creative, and behaviorism, this approach to psychology on which structuralism was based, is totally incapable of explaining that aspect that is present with the language, that is creativity. For Chomsky, the linguistic theory should be concerned with linguistic universal This is a conclusion about this first lecture, or summary of the first lecture, Linguistics in the 20th Century. One can say, or one can summarize what has been presented and briefly discussed in this first presentation in the following. First point is that we talk about two different periods of time. The period that was before the birth of modern linguistics and the period that is after the birth of modern linguistics. Generally, we refer to Ferdinand de Saussure as, and his famous posthumous published book, Cours en linguistique générale, general courses in linguistics, as the birth of modern linguistics. So before, in 1916, of course, before 1916, all what happened in this period of time is referred to as traditional grammar. After the birth of modern linguistics, it is linguistics as we know it today. Of course, the foundations, the principles are different from traditional grammar to modern linguistics. In the period of modern linguistics, there are many schools. The main two schools that arrived just after Ferdinand de Saussure, we have the structuralist school, and later on, the Chomskyan or transformational generative grammar school. Overall, these two schools, let's say, ought to describe language, but they were different in how to approach this description of language and the methodologies that were used by these two schools to describe language. So this is a brief presentation of the linguistics in the 20th century. Thank you very much indeed for your attention.